welcome back, Minute Readers. Tonight we are jumping right into The Ghost of Yesterday's Love, our first read of the spooky season. This one has a cute little dedication inside, so I'm going to start with that. In dedication to all the ghosts of yesterday's love, the ones who helped lead us to where we were meant to be all along. There he was again. I couldn't believe my eyes. I stood momentarily frozen as chills enveloped me. It appeared he was staring directly at me. I shook my head and rubbed my eyes before looking back. It happened again. He seemed to vanish into thin air. That was the third time I had seen him this week. Each time, he seemed to vanish the second that I looked away. At this point, I don't know if I'm going crazy, or if it's the stress and sleeplessness from moving into the new house getting to me. If by some slim chance I'm not crazy or fatigued, and he is in fact real, why does he keep lingering outside of my house, and what does he want? Once in the house, I quickly became distracted by the seemingly endless task of unpacking. Byron, my best friend, was supposed to be here helping me with the heavy stuff. However, something important came up with one of his friends, and he wouldn't be able to be by until dinner time. Convenient, I thought to myself with a laugh upon receiving his text. The sun was starting to go down, so I decided it was time to put dinner on. I was startled by Bella, who excitedly began sniffing by the front door and wagging her tail, like dogs do when someone they recognize arrives. I figured Byron had arrived early, and made my way to the door. As I looked through the peephole, I was surprised to find no one there. I figured somebody walking another dog must have gone by, or something of the sort, and continued making dinner, not thinking much of it. That was, until it happened again a moment later. Starting to feel a little unsure of the situation, I texted Byron asking if he was on his way yet. He responded with, "Hey, let me call you in a minute." Well, there's my answer to that question. It definitely wasn't Byron out there messing around. I took a deep breath to try to shake the wave of nervousness that was enveloping me. Again, I walked over to the door and looked at the peephole. This time, I was looking directly at the back of a man's head. I knew I'd locked the screen door when I came in earlier, so I felt a little sense of security when opening the front door slightly. "Yes?" I said, opening the door a crack. I was shocked to find my front stoop empty. I was about to shut the front door again when a shadow by my porch swing caught my attention. Not sure if it was fear or frustration I was now feeling, I called out, "Can I help you?" The shadowed figure slowly turned to reveal a hooded man. I could not make out his face as he spoke. "He needs you now. Find him." "Who does?" Just as I began to ask, he vanished. I blinked. I couldn't believe my eyes. A wave of panic crashed over me, and I could feel my hands trembling. Mindlessly, I slammed the door shut, locked it, and ran upstairs. Shaking, I texted Byron. 911, I need you now. Close to 15 minutes had gone by, and I was still under the blankets in my room contemplating if I had just seen a ghost, which I did not believe in, or if I was utterly out of my mind. When I heard a car pull up, I peeked out my window. It was Byron. I ran downstairs to let him in. He was looking around with a strange look on his face when I opened the door. "What's wrong?" he questioned. "What's wrong with you?" I questioned back, studying his face. "I don't want to freak you out, but there was some guy out here staring at your house when I pulled up. I didn't see where he went. He managed to disappear just as I got out of the car," he explained. I grabbed his arm and pulled him into the house, locking the door behind us. "What's going on?" he asked again, this time with a sense of urgency. I opened my mouth to speak, yet couldn't figure out what to say. I knew how it was going to sound. Then it hit me. It appeared he had seen him too. Still trembling, I sat down with him on the couch and explained everything that had happened throughout the day, leading up to my texting him. I couldn't tell by the look on his face if he thought I was crazy, or if he actually believed me. It was a moment before he spoke. "We need to get some security around here." "I agree, but I think you're missing the main point." The man seemed to vanish into thin air as I was looking straight at him. I replied, feeling both a bit foolish and upset. "Okay, well, we'll look into a priest too," he said in an attempt to make light of the situation. I gave him a playful nudge. "Shut up." After thinking about it for a moment, I muttered under my breath, "Maybe that isn't such a bad idea." He cocked his head to the side. He was studying my face. I think he was trying to figure out if I had been serious about the priest, as he knew I didn't believe in all that stuff. At least, I didn't used to. However, I knew what I had witnessed on the porch earlier, and it was like nothing I had ever seen before. I was shocked when he wrapped his arm around me. "I'll sleep here tonight, and we'll figure out what we're going to do in the morning." I agreed without hesitation and thanked him. That at least gave me a little sense of security for the night. Things seemed normal for the remainder of the evening as we ate dinner and unpacked some more boxes. Finally, we went to sleep. It felt like it took forever for me to stop my mind from racing enough to doze off around 2 a.m. I was startled awake by a noise in the room. As I nervously glanced around, I noticed the clock now read 3:03 a.m. Just then, I almost screamed as the figure appeared at the end of the bed. "Please don't do that. He needs you," he said in a weak voice. I felt paralyzed. Mustering up all my courage, I asked, "Who does?" The figure lingered silently for a moment before responding. "It's time you forgave him." "Who?" I questioned again, and with that, just as before, he vanished. This was getting stranger and stranger. Yet, after this encounter, I felt less fearful for some reason. It was clear whatever, or whoever it was, didn't want to hurt me. It wanted my help. But how was I to help it if it didn't tell me who needed it? Just then, Byron came barging in. "I heard voices. Is someone here?" He questioned with a sense of urgency. I sat up and shook my head. "You'll never believe me." Just then he cut me off. "I'm your best friend. Of course I'll believe you. Plus, I very clearly heard a man's voice in here. Tell me what's going on." I told him what had transpired, and that I had absolutely no clue what or who it had been talking about. It was at this point that we both decided it would be best if he slept in my room the remainder of the night. Needless to say, neither one of us got much sleep. The little bit I did sleep, my dreams were plagued by this man begging for my help. Although I never saw his face, I couldn't shake the feeling of familiarity. In the morning, Byron disclosed he had a strange dream as well, yet he refused to say what it was about, claiming it would make him sound crazy. I reminded him that I, myself, had been feeling like I was losing it too. We laughed and joked that maybe we were both going crazy together. Despite the smile and jokes, I could tell that something about his dream had really bothered him. I couldn't help but wonder what had been so bad about it that had made him not want to tell me. After glancing at his vibrating phone, he informed me that he had to go check on his friend before swinging by the store to grab the security stuff. I made him some breakfast to go and thanked him again for everything. I couldn't help but wonder what was so wrong with his friend that he had to keep checking on him. However, I refrained from prying for fear of sounding rude. Still exhausted, I went to lay back down. I doubted I'd be able to get any sleep, yet I hoped resting my eyes for a few minutes would at least help a little bit. I must have fallen back asleep after all, because the next thing I knew, the man was back in my room. "He needed you then, and he needs you now more than ever. Everything that happened was all my fault. I am so sorry," he said in a low, almost whisper. Completely baffled, I said the first thing that came to mind. "I'm sorry, but I think you have the wrong person. I have no idea who you're talking about." I blinked in disbelief as his image faded slightly, and it sounded like he was struggling to get out the words. "It's you, Nessa. You must help him and forgive." He got out before vanishing once more. My mouth dropped, and I couldn't shake the chills that enveloped me when he had said my name. Startled, I awoke to someone knocking on the door. Byron had returned, and he came bearing gifts. He had gotten Sage and a security camera. "I'm not sure how much any of this will help, but at this point, anything's worth a shot," he said with a little nervous laugh. He installed the camera and was about to start saging when I told him to stop. I couldn't quite explain it, yet something deep within me was telling me that I needed to see the man again. If by some slim chance I wasn't crazy, I needed more to go on in order to figure out what this was all about. I could tell Byron disapproved, yet he agreed nevertheless. Just then, Byron got a call. It seemed important. He furrowed his brow and told the person on the other end that he'd be by shortly. He informed me his friend needed him to help him with something yet again. He seemed drained as he said it. I couldn't help but notice the sad look he was trying to hide. I had 100 questions, but before I was able to ask any, I was surprised when he looked me dead in the eye. "Would you mind coming along? Who knows, maybe you could help." I wasn't sure why he had such a serious look and tone. It wasn't typical of him. I figured it might have something to do with the fact that he didn't want me staying here alone anymore. I agreed to go in hopes of getting my mind off the craziness of the last few days. As we pulled up, Byron had a strange look on his face. "Say it. What's on your mind?" Nothing. Just be nice. He's been through a lot," he replied. I was shocked. "What do you mean? When have you ever known me to not be nice?" I questioned. "Nothing. Come on," he said, getting out of the car. As we entered the house, I felt a bit enraged, as I now understood exactly what he had meant. Our eyes locked the moment we saw one another. Although we were both clearly uncomfortable, neither of us could look away. And there I was, standing face to face with the only man I had ever truly loved. the same man that had broken my heart. We had been a couple once, but more than that, it had felt like we were soulmates. We shared our dreams, secrets, and deepest desires. When I was with him, I never had a care in the world. Every day was a new, exciting adventure. His smile, and the way he laughed, had the power to put anyone in a good mood. Sure, he was handsome and strong, but it was his personality and, well, just about everything about him that I had been in love with. It had been 2 weeks prior to our scheduled move to a cute little apartment just off the campus of the university we were transferring to, when everything went awry. We had just completed community college, enjoyed a fun and eventful summer off, and excitedly packed preparing for our move, for our first time living together. It was at that 2-week mark that I found myself experiencing a whirlwind of emotions when Ben began acting differently. Something was bothering him. However, despite my countless attempts, I couldn't get him to open up to me about what was wrong. We had always told each other everything, the good, the bad, and the indifferent, and it was breaking my heart that he was shutting me out. Finally, the week before the move, he asked to meet up. With a small spark of hope that he was finally ready to open up to me, I went to meet him. As I hugged him, the tension between us told me something was really off. It was then that he informed me that he would not be joining me in the move after all. He refused to say why. He said it was best to go our separate ways. While avoiding eye contact, he explained that he had gone ahead and prepaid his half, so I'd still be able to keep the apartment. For the first year anyway. Apparently, he thought that the apartment was a fair trade for breaking my heart. Jerk. After offering me no explanation and walking away with tears in his eyes, I had to assume the guilt I had seen written all over his face was due to him meeting someone else. I couldn't be sure that was the case, but being mad at him helped ease the heartbreak just enough to push through it. I cried many nights and suffered sleeplessly through that first semester without him. I even had a few moments of weakness and attempted to call and text him on several occasions, never getting a single response. All the while, Byron was there for me, trying to help me pick up the broken pieces. Whenever I attempted to ask him about Ben, he would just say that he was sure Ben would tell me when he was ready. He seemed to believe his own words, at first anyway. So, I did too. As time passed, it became quite apparent that that wasn't the case. The only words of comfort Byron was left to offer was the promise that I had done nothing wrong, and, regardless of how it seemed, Ben still cared about me very much. With his words and Ben's actions contradicting one another, I felt defeated, and eventually gave up all hope. There were times that I desperately wanted to reach out and make sure he was doing well. However, I refrained, not wanting to look desperate. I knew if he wanted me, then we still would have been together. If he still cared, he wouldn't have left my text unanswered. So as much as it hurt, I pushed the pain deep down inside and did my best to move on. Byron knew all of this, so why in the hell did he bring me here? I finally shook the shocked daze seeing him had put me in, and I looked around taking in the situation. I noticed a dying bouquet of flowers across the room, accompanied by several cards. That's strange. I wonder what those are for, I thought to myself. As my eyes swept full circle around the room, they came to rest on Ben once again. He hadn't taken his eyes off me. He still looked to be in shock. It was then that I noticed how red his eyes were. He looked like he had been through hell. I looked helplessly to Byron for some guidance, only to discover his back was to me and he was doing something over the counter. Hi, I said awkwardly before hurrying over to Byron. What the hell? I questioned under my breath. One sec, I need to finish making the list. The list? I questioned with absolutely no idea what he was talking about. Yeah, sorry, he said, finally turning to me. I could see Ben still staring out of the corner of my eye. Well? I questioned again, feeling extremely uneasy. Byron then leaned in and whispered in my ear, Don't hate me. I didn't mean to spring this on you, but like I said, he's been going through a lot, and thought maybe you could help, because honestly, I'm running out of ideas. I promise I'll explain more when I get back, but I need to get to the store before the pharmacy closes. It won't take long, I promise. It took me a second to process everything that he had just said, but once I did, I began protesting immediately. Oh, no, you don't. You're not leaving me here. Are you crazy? We both looked over startled when we heard a noise over by Ben. It's okay. She doesn't have to stay here with me. She probably hates me, and she has every right to, Ben said as he turned and walked over to the couch. The look of hurt on his face and the way he sat down with his head hung towards his knees made me immediately feel guilty. Damn it. Why did I still care? Why did I still feel the need to go to him now, after all the pain he had caused me? Byron looked at me wide-eyed and nodded towards Ben, making it obvious that he wanted me to go to him. I wanted to go to him too, but There was no way I was admitting to it, so I shook my head no. Byron shook his head yes, with a stern look on his face. I knew he wasn't going to let it go. So after letting out a sigh, I slowly and nervously made my way over to the couch. The second that I sat down, Byron called out, "I'm heading to the store. Be back shortly." Ben remained as he was. He didn't so much as look up. I was quiet for a moment as I attempted to figure out what to say. Taking in the fact that something major was obviously going on, I decided I had to temporarily let go of the past, as difficult as that was going to be. "Hey, do you want to talk about it?" I asked, placing my hand on his. He pulled his hand away. "You don't have to feel obligated to pretend that you care," he said in a low voice. I was shocked. I had never seen him like this before. However, trumping the feeling of shock was that of hurt and frustration. I couldn't hold it in anymore, despite how hard I tried. "I don't have to pretend like I care? Are you brain damaged? I wasn't the one who pushed you away and stopped caring. Let's not twist the facts here." He looked up shocked. I wasn't sure why. I hadn't done anything but reiterate what had actually happened. Just then, a shadow over by the flowers caught my eye. It was the vanishing man. I felt my body tense as I stared in disbelief. How was this happening again? Mindlessly, I reached over and grabbed Ben's hand. I saw Ben looking in that direction as well. The man seemed to be pointing at something. As I strained to see, I realized it was a picture, but I couldn't make out who it was of. "I don't understand," I started to say when I stopped again abruptly. I didn't want Ben to think I was crazy, in case he wasn't seeing the man. "You are finally as you should be," he said before vanishing once again. My attention was immediately drawn to Ben when he made a noise. I turned just in time to see tears in his eyes before he hung his head back down. Seeing him like this, I acted on pure impulse. I wrapped my arms around his neck and held his head to my chest. It was a minute before he wrapped his arms around my waist and pulled me in tightly. I was thankful that he didn't push me away this time. We stayed like that for a long while before he gently tugged on my arm, pulling me down onto the couch beside him. He put his arm around me, and I was taken back to the past when we had been happy, and this had been a normal occurrence. I hated how right this still felt. However, given the circumstances, I dared not say or do otherwise. As we sat there, my mind was brought back to the man. Was Ben who he had been trying to get me to all along? Had Ben seen him too? 1,000 questions riddled my mind. I was snapped back to the present when Ben slid his arm off my shoulders and stood. I watched silently, waiting to see what he was going to do next. As he walked to the bathroom and shut the door behind him, a cool breeze enveloped me. I looked around to see if there was an open window. Nothing. Just then a big squish blew against my back in the direction of the table with the dying flowers. 2 petals drifted down to the table, leaving but a few survivors remaining. My eyes were drawn to the picture again as it teetered on the table. I slowly and cautiously walked towards it. As my eyes rested on the man in the picture, my heart sunk. It was William, Ben's dad. The date on the picture revealed he had passed 3 weeks prior. The surrounding cards were those of condolences and had phrases such as "gone too soon" and "at least he's no longer suffering." Suffering? I wondered. The last time I had seen him, he had congratulated us on securing the apartment. I remember he had looked a bit tired, but aside from that, seemed fine. Just then, something outside the window moved. I glanced out to see the man once again. He reached up, putting his hands on the hood of his sweatshirt. Part of me already knew what he was about to reveal, but I couldn't pull my eyes away. I had to be sure. As he slid the hood off his head, William gave a faint smile before disappearing into what looked to be a glowing beam of light. A tear trickled down my cheek as I stumbled back a few steps. I was startled when I bumped into something hard directly behind me. It was Ben. It looked as though he were going to put his arm around me when I pushed him away. "Why didn't you tell me?" I blurted out. Ben looked down at the ground before walking away. I followed him back over to the couch before questioning him again. "Why?" I demanded. I wasn't going to let this go, and he knew it. "What did you want me to do? Tell you that I was going to have to watch my dad die a slow and painful death? I knew that there was no way you would have gone and completed college if I had, and there was no way I was going to have you trade that life to stay here and watch me become less of the man you loved as I turned into a stressed-out mess. It took everything I had to lock away all my feelings and emotions. I had to be strong for my dad. Exposing you to that version of me would have been far worse than..." He stopped mid-sentence, getting choked up. Turning his head in the other direction, he wiped the tears away. It literally felt like my heart was breaking all over again. However, this time, It wasn't from the pain he had caused me, but rather from realizing the pain he had endured. I scooted next to him on the couch, placing my hand on his back. And there it was again, the same little tingle I had felt, but chose to ignore earlier. Only this time, it was even stronger. I was surprised when he spoke again. "Don't worry, I don't expect anything from you, and you're free to leave when Byron gets back." If I'm being honest, his words stung. I wanted with all my heart to be there by his side in this moment. Did he not feel the same? Did he really not want me there? "Do you want me to leave?" I questioned, not fully sure I was ready to hear the answer. "That's not what I said," he replied in a low voice. With that, I pushed him. "Then shut up, and for the love of God, stop trying to always push me away." Shocked, he looked over at me through his teary eyes. "Why would you want to be around me like this?" "Are you serious? Look, the way I see it is, it's still you, regardless of the current situation or what you're going through, which means I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I may not be able to make the pain go away, but at least I can be here, so you don't have to go through it alone anymore. And who knows, maybe I'll even be able to help make it a little bit more bearable, if we're lucky." I replied, giving him a little nudge. My heart sank a little when he didn't respond. Feeling that familiar sting once more, I slid my arm off his back. I was shocked when he caught my hand with a firm grip. "You don't understand." "What is it that you think that I don't understand?" I questioned, feeling a little irritated by his constant attempts to push me away. As I looked into his eyes, I saw both sadness and worry. Growing a little concerned, I questioned again. "What?" I saw the hesitation on his face. "Look, at the end of the day, it's just me and you. Same as it always was. You could still talk to me, I promise you. I'm not made of glass. I'm not gonna break." "Yeah, but I might," he said under his breath as he let go of my hand and started to turn away. "Oh, no, you don't. Not this time," I said, pulling him back towards me. "What was that comment supposed to mean?" I asked, not willing to let go. "If I got you back, I don't know if I could handle losing you again." He turned his head once again, looking embarrassed. "But if I turned and walked out the door right now, you'd be fine with that?" I questioned. I wasn't going to let him off the hook without clarifying. If he truly thought it was better for me to walk out that door and out of his life forever right then, as heartbreaking as it may be for me, that's just what I was going to do. Again, he didn't respond, but rather looked pained. "Yes or no, do you want me to leave?" I pressed. "No!" he blurted out, sounding upset. "Good answer. I'm not sure I could have," I said teasingly as I wrapped my arms around him. Nothing felt better than him wrapping his arms around me and enveloping me in his embrace. He nuzzled his face against my head and whispered, "Thank you." This made me pull him in tighter. I never wanted to let this feeling go again. Just then, we heard a voice off in the distance and glanced up to see Byron in the driveway, talking to someone. As he shifted, revealing who was standing next to him, my heart began to race. I felt Ben's arms tighten around me. He was holding me so closely, I could feel his heart racing too. The figure next to Byron glanced back at the house and lifted a hand and nodded. Ben nodded back as the figure slowly disappeared into the glow one last time. I stood frozen in disbelief. "Was that—" I started to ask, but I couldn't quite manage to get out the rest of the words. Ben nodded. I felt a wave of warmth overcome me, and instead of being freaked out by what had transpired, I felt oddly at ease. I felt as though, in a way, everything had been set right, and I was finally where I had been meant to be, once again. As days turned into weeks, the smile that I had once loved became more frequent on Ben's face. He was getting better, happier, and our relationship was getting better too. They say, the power of love can even transcend death. Perhaps that was the case here. A father's love at work to make sure his son was taken care of, even after he was gone. Or, perhaps, this was the power of love at work on a more humanly plane, bringing two hearts back together that were always meant to be as one. Alright guys, I hope you loved it. That was the Ghost of Yesterday's Love. And that means that since we wrapped that one up so quickly, a new fall season read will be coming up in the next episode. Hang tight.